guys. You're listening to the JK Experience, where we train leaders to live a life of exceptional impact, influence, and faith. Hey, I'm Josh Kalinowski, and today, this is going to be fun. I'm not going to lie. We don't have James, so I know you'll be a little bit disappointed. However, we've got our very own Barbie Harrison in the studio. So, Miss Barbie, welcome.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I am so excited. We've got her back in the studio. We've been able to well, I don't want to say sucker you back into here doing this, but I know you volunteered to do it.
I'm pretty sure I bribed you, actually.
Yeah, you did. So if you guys remember, we did a podcast with our amazing Barbie after she completed 75 Hard, and those takeaways were so good. In fact, that is one of my favorite podcasts that we've done. And not only was that so good and powerful and impactful, that we also had you do this in front of our entire company as well, too. And that was the only time we've ever had a standing ovation was after that conversation that you had with them. So if I had the applause thing on here, I'd hit it, but I'd probably screw it up and do one of the other ones. So excited to be having Barbie talking about round 2 of 75 Hard. Yes, I'm going to repeat that again. Miss Barbie did the second version, the second time of 75 Hard, and we've got her 11 takeaways that we're going to be sharing with today. So we won't get into it yet, but are you excited about being on the show today?
Absolutely. Yep. I am. I'm very happy to be here.
It's been a while. Is it all coming back to you now? Is it getting a little bit familiar now that you have the headphones on and the microphone so you can hear your voice? And
yes, yeah. No pressure. Like you gave a really great introduction for what I did last time. So we'll see.
Oh no,
we'll see what I can do this time.
I got the notes before we came on, and I was sharing this with Kate last night, and I'm like, those 3 right there, I'm in a completely R&D. I'm taking those. I'm not going to take credit for them, but I'm going to be using them in future podcasts and future communication pieces. I think they're just amazing, and I love where first of all, I love where your heart's at with it. I love where your mindset is at with it, and for you to be able to articulate, which is one of the great things that you do so well, and that's why you are in charge of our True North Media company. By the way, she did get elevated to the manager position of True North Media. She is running the show, so it's awesome to have a powerful person, not only just a powerful woman, but just a powerful person running that company for us. So first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you, Josh.
Well deserved. But I just love how you communicate. You do a fantastic job, and you articulate so well. So I need to shut up and let you start talking. So without further ado, let's talk about that. So once again, round 2 of 75 Hard. For those of you that have done 75 Hard, like just getting through the first version of it is tough enough, let alone setting yourself up for another round of it. Do you want to say anything about it before we actually go into your 11 takeaways?
I just want to say that, 75 Hard, I think a lot of people kind of attribute it as like, oh, that's just for the crazy people.
Right.
But it's not really for the crazy people, and it's so much more than just a physical challenge to lose weight. I get that feedback a lot, like, oh, you're just trying to diet and lose weight. It's so much more than that. Like, the mental aspect of 75 Hard is really the most important aspect, and the discipline piece. So I guess I would just recommend anybody who is curious about it, really look into the program and educate yourself about it, because it's really quite a wonderful experience, as hard as it is.
Yeah, without a doubt. I will tell you, the hands down, probably one of the most impactful things that I've done was going through 75 Hard. I loved going through it with everybody else, but I also loved the self-discovery that I had through that process. And so I'm excited, man. So let's get into this. So number 1 for you, and I'll just let you just take it away. I'm going to say number 1, number 2, number 11, but you just go. Number 1 for you was what? What was the thing that you took away?
So the first takeaway that I have is rest is a responsibility. I know that we live in a culture that is obsessed with working until we die.
Right.
Grind, hustle, work, and it's celebrated to do things like skipping lunch or skipping breakfast or waking up at 3 a.m. But ultimately, rest is a responsibility that we have to take care of ourselves so that we can maintain the quality of our work, right? Because ultimately, all of those elements of hustle are not sustainable. And I really learned that this time through because I actually injured myself last time.
Right.
I did 75 hard, and I really had to be proactive about only doing 2 workouts for 45 minutes each instead of being like, oh, we could just do 2 hours or, not stretch after this workout. Like really just those tiny little maintenance things are so essential to get through not just 75 hard, but life.
Yeah. Oh, do you remember when we had our leadership retreat last year, and we had the entire company, and everybody under the veil of Kalinowski Enterprises, and we had Brad Davidson, and he really spoke about that specifically about sleep and rest, and how we have this myth, especially as entrepreneurs, that the less sleep we get, the better of an entrepreneur we are, right? Or the more pristine we are with that. And it was an eye-opener for me to realize that, man, for me to be optimal, I needed at least 7 hours of sleep. I needed to give myself that space between 7 and 9 hours would be phenomenal, but that doesn't really ever happen. But just knowing that is like, no, in order for me to be my best, the best entrepreneur that I can be, the best business owner I can be, I need to do that as a priority. So did Brad's message hit you at all there, or was it truly just like, was that the seed that planted, or was it really through the self-discovery of 75 hard?
I would definitely say that planted the seed and confirmed a lot of things that I had thought about. There's kind of a guilt associated almost with like, oh man, you're just that person that needs all that sleep. You can't stay up late with us. Yeah. It's like, no, I really do need to go home by 8 because I need this much sleep. So it helped plant the seed of it's okay to give yourself permission to do the things that are going to fill you up so that you can be available at your best capacity for others.
Love it. Awesome. Great takeaway. Number 2.
Life should be less about the pursuit of happiness and more about expressing our joy. I think oftentimes we think of happiness as this final destination that we're all just kind of scrambling to get to. And it's really struck me lately that, there's joy in the journey, right? And everybody talks about that, right? But what does that actually look like? That means that we can't expect this future happiness. We have to look for it in our current circumstances. And so ultimately, are we doing things that express that joy, that build that joy, right? Or are we trying to build a life for an eventual happiness? Are most of the activities that we're doing future tense, or are they expressions of what we already have within us?
Yeah. I really love this one. You also, in the ones down below, you're going to refer to this a little bit more too, but when I read this one last night, that really hit home with me too, because I know that I've set goals out in front of my life that I want to achieve, and that's when I felt like I was going to be happy. And it wasn't just about enjoying the process, but it's also just being joy-filled during the process. And I think a lot of people, especially drivers, have a hard time enjoying that moment, giving joy to the moments, because you're not at your destination. You're not there yet. You're still unfulfilled, so to speak, right? So I just love that you pointed that out, and it really, once again, is something that I can most certainly relate to. So, number 3.
Meaningful is better than being successful. This is kind of the idea that, profoundness of experience, meaning in experiences is better than just having good experiences. And what would life look like if we stopped measuring moments by good or bad? For example, you're in 75 hard and it's 20 degrees outside and you are freezing your butt off and you're taking your walk, and do we just count those as that's a bad experience, right? Or you show up at work and a client is happy with you and you get a pat on the back, so that's a good experience. But what is the meaning behind all of these things? And because meaning is outside of good and bad. You can have experiences that appear negative on the outside or are not pleasant to go through, like some of 75 hard, right? Yeah. But ultimately they're a lot more profound than maybe some of the quote unquote good experiences that you'd have. So really this time through was just kind of a way to look at my life differently and measure it through the perspective of what am I doing that is adding meaning to my life? What am I doing that is building purpose in my life, rather than am I just living to have good experiences?
I guess so. That's such a hard thing to identify, is what does success look, because it looks so different in everybody's forms. And I love how you brought in the meaningful part of it. One of the questions that the statements that you said is, do you want a good life or do you want a profound life? maybe dive in that a little bit. Like, what is profound life? What does it look like for you? I'm sure that you've been trying to wrestle with that. Like, do you want to have a good life or a profound life? What does that look like in Barbie's world?
I actually was just reading a quote earlier today, and it said, "Sadness is evidence that it mattered to the heart." And I just think that really captures what I was trying to explain with this takeaway that, I've had some sad things. We all have, right?
Yeah.
2020, man, that was rough.
Yeah.
But it was so profound in so many ways. It really brought out in me a lot of tenacity and resilience. And I think and everybody can probably relate to that, right, in one way or another. And I guess that's what I'm trying to really capture by that idea of a profound life. Are you doing things that are making yourself better and a better society? Are you doing things that ultimately are going to outlive you when you're gone?
Yeah.
Are you living for the moment to make yourself feel good in the moment?
That's awesome. Love it. All right. Okay. Number 4.
You have to choose yourself before you can choose anyone else. So 75 hard in many ways is kind of a selfish thing, right? You're like, nope, can't eat that. Nope, can't hang out today. Nope, gotta leave by 8 because nope, I gotta read my book.
Yeah.
There's lots of different things you have to say no to because you're saying yes to yourself. But ultimately, you have to choose to do those things for yourself before you can ultimately give to others. Because if you are choosing yourself first, that means you're having the hard conversations with yourself. You're loving yourself. You're putting yourself through the really tough stuff, the disciplinary stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so ultimately, you're going to be in so much better shape to actually be able to say yes when you need to others.
Nothing more than that. That was good. I'm just waiting for the next pause. Right? I thought you were just taking a breath. But it goes back to, we talk about this a lot in leadership within our companies, is the fact that you have to lead yourself first, right? The unfortunate thing is that so many people feel like leadership is all about leading other people. And there's a component of that, of course, but we know that unless you start leading yourself first, like, you're going to be a worthless leader. You're not going to be the strong leader that you need to be. You're not going to be the leader that's going to lead people to greater things because you have no personal integrity, right? And so I really love what you were talking about here. And then, so I'm curious, going through it the second time, did you realize that you had to choose yourself in a different degree from the first time that you did it?
Absolutely. I feel like the second time through, I experienced more of kind of some of the judgmental aspects of 75 hard. Like, you're doing that again? Mm-hmm. What do you get when you're done with that? Do you just get like a medal or something? Well, sort of, Yeah. I don't think that's a good idea for you to do that. That sounds really hard, and but just ultimately realizing, like, I'm still choosing myself by choosing to follow through with it as a commitment that I've made to myself. And I think it really just showed me the value that I can trust myself to make wise decisions that are going to improve me. And kind of like an evolution, right, of like kid Barbie to adult Barbie. I would like to think that I was an adult last year, but I feel like I'm even more adulty now because I was really able to understand that, I can make decisions for myself entirely outside of the opinions of others. And it doesn't really matter, honestly, what other people think.
Isn't it fun to look back at your old self and you knew that you were good back then? You knew that you're a good-hearted person. You knew that you were, adventurous. You knew that you were loyal. You knew all of these things, disciplined. But then you look at yourself now and you're like, wow, I have grown so much. Like, the person I am today, or the person I was last year, pales in comparison to the person that I am today. And it takes things such as 75 hard for you to help discover that and get to that next level. So I think it's really cool that you were able to recognize that. I love this one. This is one of my favorites. Number 5.
How big I am depends on how small my perspective is. And definitely I'm going to attribute this to a podcast that I listened to by Ed Milet.
Yeah, I listened to the same one.
He had a great guest speaker on there. Yeah. So I'm definitely not going to claim copyright to this phrase. I just was so much in love with it because I thought it so concisely captured how important, life is really not so much in what happens to us, but how do we look at the things that happen to us. And how we view ourselves is so much comprised of the lens in which we view our world. And so if we have a small perspective, then we're pretty big in Casper, right?
Yeah.
Like we're pretty cool, right?
You're pretty big on your city block, for sure.
Exactly, right? We're like the biggest in Wyoming, right? All of 10 people in Wyoming, right? But then you enlarge that perspective, and I think it's really important, not just like for humility, right, and understanding how you are, but it really brings comfort in knowing that your problems are also only as big as your perspective. So if you have a wide perspective, you can understand that in the grand scheme of things, these little temporary things are not actually going to matter so much.
I'm so glad you took that away from this, because I listened to the same podcast, and I remember hearing those words from the individual that I was speaking to, and it was such great perspective to say, wow, like if I think of myself so highly, my world is really small, and in order for us to really grow and really appreciate all that we have and really understand really the significance or the insignificance to a certain point of our impact, you just have to be on a bigger stage and realize that. And to a certain point, that can be a little bit scary for people if their humility isn't in check. But at the same time, it's also very freeing for those that do have the humility to say, wow, it isn't all about me, right? I just get to have the impact and the opportunity to be on the stage where I'm at, but it's just so much greater than I, and thank goodness for that too, right? Thank goodness that the stage is so much bigger so that other people can share it with you, and or you can't screw it all up either, because as we all know, we're all human, and man, do we do this on a regular basis of screwing stuff up.
Absolutely.
All right, let's see, where are we at here? We're on number 6.
You can't choose the changes in life you experience, but you can choose to grow in the change. One of my favorite quotes by John C. Maxwell is, change is inevitable, growth is optional. And I really experienced that the second time through 75 Hard, because it's so easy, and not just with 75 Hard, obviously all of life, it's so easy to be like, okay, this again. Okay, we can do this again. I've done this before. And just kind of even zone out, right, to the actual impact or significance of what you're doing, whether, it's at work or with your family or texting a friend, right? And I really think that it's important that we choose to grow when things change. We obviously all experienced a lot of change in 2020, but did we choose to grow through it, or did we just complain about it? When things are changing up, sometimes it's often received, with negativity, right? Like, oh no, it's changing. And I think it's really important that we look at these changes as growth opportunities. I've changed positions in the company that I'm in, and that to me is an incredible opportunity to grow. Is it scary? Hell yeah. But it is also an amazing opportunity to grow. And so I really cling to this quote in times of change.
Yeah, I love it. One of the things that we just kind of go back into of like just regurgitating some of this language is the fact that, the pain of change will never happen until the pain of staying the same outweighs the change, right? And 75 Hard, it kind of forces you to get into that, right? When you make that commitment, and people fail all the time in 75 Hard. I'm surprised by some of the people that I thought would get through it like super easy because they're disciplined, because it is as simple as it is. There's also a lot of dedication to that, right? And accidents happen, mistakes happen, right? You forget to take the pick, right? You're on a certain diet and you forget to check the ingredients. I've seen that happen as well too. And so those are very, very particular things, but it's also where people will just give up because they get influenced by friends like, dude, just have a beer, man. Like, really, why do you want to even do this? And I've seen that happen, unfortunately, too, where they can't even change because the pain of staying the same is not outweighing the change that they're about to go through. So I think it's really great insight that you brought that into this. Number 7.
Choosing to shift your perspective from this is hurting me to this is helping me is where healing begins. So my word for the year was heal. And I really understood more through 75 Hard, through the time I spent reflecting, through the numerous podcasts that you get to listen to in your 2 hours that you're working out every day, right? And I just really loved how concise this was, changing the frame of mind from something is hurting, something is painful, to this is helping me.
Yeah.
I've been through some painful stuff recently, and it was really... I really felt like it was a God thing to hear that so concisely, bringing me back to how do I heal? How do I heal? I change my perspective. Mm-hmm. That's how healing happens. Yeah. And that timeline is really truly up to the individual, right? And so it gives a lot of power, right? Like, you have the power to heal. You're not a victim to the painful things that have hurt you. You're not just permanently damaged from them. You literally have the power within yourself to heal from it if you choose to change your perspective.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that self-awareness is so important too, because as you well know, so many people are doing things to themselves, whether mentally or physically, that are hurting them, that they're not even recognizing it. So to be able to even have that perspective, like, wow, this is actually hurting me. Like, this is actually, and then you have to change that perspective to say, no. Now I have to start doing things that are going to be helping me too. So as I was reading it, that's kind of where my mind went. So I love how you've got different perspectives even on this right here. And I think it's just really impactful. I think there's a lot of people that can take that, this is hurting me, and change it into, this is helping me. Number 8.
Sometimes we don't need to know more. We just need to do more of what we know. I think it's really easy to measure competence, whether it's in this new position that I'm in, mm-hmm. or anything, with how much you know. And that can get really overwhelming really quick, and you can feel like just a total idiot, right? Because you're like, I don't know all the things. Yeah. But it's really ultimately like, are we really measuring ourselves by how much stuff is in our brains, or are we measuring ourselves by how much stuff we actually had done? Are we measuring ourselves by all the promises we make and the intentions we say, or are we measuring ourselves by the actual actions that we take in life? And so it's very comforting, right? Like, just do what you know. And you will already be better than like 90% of the other people who just know a lot and never do anything with it.
Yeah. This was number 2 for me. Like, I love this because I know, especially as leaders, we're constantly trying to get more information. We're trying to like hey, we got to read more. We got to listen more. We got to implement more. We got to, like, the person I was last year can't be that same person this year because I got to do so many more things, and I got to implement so many more strategies, and there's always a new widget, and there's, it just can get overwhelming. And for me, when I read that, I was like, oh, that was such a great hit me between the eyes moment of, why don't you just start doing the things that you know how to do, right? Why don't you just start implementing the things that you've already learned and read and know will make an impact, right? How many times we go to a seminar or we hear a great conversation and we take some great notes from it, and then we don't implement it, even though we know that would be impactful, because we're moving on to the next thing, right? And so I just thought it was awesome and really, really self-awareness that you were bringing towards everybody. So number 9.
When faced with challenges, you can either choose to escape from it or create something new. Another favorite quote I have is that I've really resonated with is, intelligence is the ability to adapt. And I feel like that is so relevant to 75 Hard, because life happens, right? Yeah. You sleep through your alarm and you're like, well, still got to figure out how to have 2 different workouts today and read my book. And the pandemic moved on, so things were actually happening this year during 75 Hard, and so I found myself a lot busier and really having to be extremely intentional with all of the time that I scheduled to devote to the things that I committed to for 75 Hard. Mm-hmm. And so in those moments, you can choose to escape, right, and just not fulfill your obligations, watch TV, whatever it is for you. Yeah. Or you can create something new, which ultimately I see as creating a new you, right? Or maybe it actually literally is a new way of doing something, invention. That's where those things come out, right? Is when you're in the middle of a challenge. So. Yeah.
Number 10 is literally, once again, one of my favorites out of all of this. And you can tell, like, the ones that I really like happen to be one sentence, so I can remember them, which is always good. But I love this takeaway that you have here, because I feel like we all can do this. We can do every one of these, but just this right here, if you just did this right here, this would be worth everything that you've heard on the podcast, and you will be a much better person through this. So number 10, Barbie, go ahead.
Transfer your energy rather than absorb it from others.
Mic drop, we're done. Just stop it right there.
Now go do it.
Oh, yes. Okay. Talk about it, because I can't wait to dive into this one.
So as a manager, I have to be okay. I have to be put together. I can't just be an emotional wreck.
Yeah.
And really, I hope no one wants to show up to work as an emotional wreck, no matter what position
They don't,
they're in.
but they do. We all know this.
Yes,
they do.
Yes. So, but especially as a leader, you are the one, and I'm sure, Josh, you honestly probably even understand this more than I even. So, you have to bring the energy to the group, to the meeting, to the project. You have to cast the vision. You have to excite people, rally them around it. And I am not a galvanizer at heart. That it takes an extreme amount of energy. And I've had lots of different conversations with people, and hard conversations. And sometimes those conversations are, there's unhappiness. There's something is wrong. They're upset.
Yeah.
And I'm sure anyone in a customer service job probably also relates that, right? Or even in real estate office, all of our agents relate to the different types of clients and all of their different needs. And it's so important to not absorb that, because it's going to drain you out really quick. So how can you literally build a mental wall around yourself and be like, I'm just going to be this bright light shining, and you are not going to touch this?
It's so good. We talk about this so much, filling your cup, coming in with great attitudes, and understanding, like, listen, other people are going to throw their worst at you, right? Because of the circumstances, because of things that are going on in their life. Oftentimes it's not even about you. It's about all the other circumstances that are invading their space, and now they're trying to project it into your space. And a lot of us just absorb it. We take that in. And, when you go home mad at the day, exhausted at the day, it's because of those emotions that you're absorbing that are from everybody else. So, we talk a lot about playing offense. Well, why do you play offense? Well, you play offense so that you are attacking the day. How do you play offense? Well, you start the day off on a great way, right? In a great way, which is filling your cup, doing your morning routine. Well, this right here, transferring your energy. If you don't have the energy, you can't transfer it, right?
Absolutely.
So I love that you recognize, like, you've got to have the energy first before you can transfer it. But it is so important for you to transfer it. James, I was telling you when I was kind of talking about this a little bit earlier, James did an awesome podcast, or a post, I should say, about a year ago about the storm. Everybody has a storm, and don't let their storm come into you. You bring your peace into that storm. And so this was just such a great reminder for me. I love this. Transfer your energy rather than absorb it from others. If you just did that, that is worth the price of admission for listening to this podcast right here. So love it, love it, love it. And of course, number 11, because we do the extra rep, right? We don't do 10, we always do 11. What is number 11 and your takeaways from 75 Hard?
People want wholeness, not happiness. So, integrity, a lot of people think of that in terms of morality, but integrity is also whole, right? If something has integrity, it's whole, it's complete. And so I think that, we convince ourselves that we just want to be happy all the time, and that all those other people, they're happy all the time, and so we got to be like them. But I don't think that's true. I don't think anyone is actually truly happy all the time. I think everybody is just searching for wholeness. And wholeness can only be experienced when you go through all kinds of experiences, right? That makes you who you are, right? You have to go through sadness. You have to go through happiness. You go through anger. You go through lots of different emotions, and ultimately those make you whole. And ultimately, healing means becoming whole again. Yeah. And that was just really, really a great comfort to me in a year of the word heal, knowing that, healing means that I will be complete. And that none of these emotions over grief or losing anything are wrong. They're actually helping build something more whole.
When I read this, it reminded me of a passage out of Edwin McMahon's book called Becoming a King, or not Becoming a King, I think it was Becoming a Warrior or something. But one of the things he talks about is, like, we all have a missing piece within us. And when you hear that, you're going, thinking peace is like Piece, because we're all broken. There's always a piece of us missing from one form or another. But what he was referring to was the missing piece, which was the Peace. And you can't have wholeness unless you have peace within that, right? And as I was once again just really meditating and thinking about your takeaways, when you said that wholeness, it really opened my eyes to, man, in order to create that wholeness, you've got to be able to discover that peace within you, right? You got to discover the peace within the brokenness and the disappointments and the setbacks and the failures and the challenges and all of those things that we go that, they create the life around us. They create the world around us. And if, as we talked about, if you don't have that inner peace, if you don't have the world within you at peace, then the world outside of you can never be at peace either.
Absolutely. I really kind of see it as, there's a phrase out there, you have to feel it to heal it. I think another important part of that, in order to find that inner peace, is giving yourself permission to feel all of the things that come before peace.
That's good. Really good. Well, Barbie, you did not disappoint. I know there's a lot of people who are going to be watching or listening and watching this, because we are recording this for YouTube as well too, and they're going to be sharing this. Somebody's considering doing this. Maybe they've done it and they just maybe they need to do it a second time. They're kind of wondering, like, gosh, even is it worth it? I mean, it was great the first time. Maybe they failed at it. Like, what would you say to them if they were standing in front of you right now?
There is no trying, right? As Yoda says, it's do or do not. So just do it.
Yeah. Awesome. Very simple, easy words from our lady Barbie here. Thank you so much for coming on the show again. Thanks for bringing that energy. Thanks for bringing the takeaways and that wisdom that you've gained through the hardships that you've had to go through 75 hard, and then just having the intestinal fortitude to do it. You've accomplished it twice. You've done it. You didn't let yourself down. You didn't, you didn't give yourself an excuse when you had plenty of them to not do it. And you really, really accomplished something really amazing for yourself. So congratulations on that. And thank you for being a part of the podcast again.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, guys. Well, the price of admission is to share this. And once again, Barbie just brought some tremendous revelations from her takeaways. And as you know, there's 3 things that I took away from this that were really impactful. And I hope that you were able to see some of this really reflect in your life. And I'm sure that you've got somebody that you're like, you need to do 75 hard. Well, this is probably one of those episodes that will help them get over that hump. It'll actually help them discover that courage to do it. And it is worth it. It will always be with you. You'll always have this. And I highly recommend you do it. So other than that, love you. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And we will most certainly be talking with you soon.